Hello, everyone. Really, thank you for coming to this session. We appreciate you coming here. There's such a powerful and important story to be told by Microsoft Digital, which is our IT department inside Microsoft. That is the first job I had when I joined Microsoft, was actually working in Microsoft IT. My name is Caruana Gatimu. I'm the director of the Customer Advocacy Group for AI and Collaboration. And my team is partnering with the NextGen folks to deliver this event to you. And so we're really excited to be here in person with everyone. We do a lot of online webinars and we love that stuff, but there's nothing like being in the room where you can meet each other and talk and we can just have some fluid conversation. So Stefan and I decided that we were going to do this a little bit differently than your standard presentation. You will get plenty of slideware here at this show. There is no shortage of PowerPoint slides, and they're incredibly valuable. But what I find really valuable is actually hearing from the people who are doing the work and getting insights directly from them. So we're going to go through a couple of slides. I'm going to show you the website where you can get a bunch of materials. But then he and I are just going to have a fireside chat about their experience rolling out Copilot, managing our large estate, the data, and what have you we have to do. My team works a good deal with Microsoft IT, as do other parts of product engineering, which is where I sit in collaborative apps and platform, because we take insights from Microsoft IT and build it into the products themselves. Things like Amplify, things like the reporting, Viva Insights, other tools. Really, our Copilot control system has a tremendous amount of influence directly from our own IT professionals. And we feel like with them as customer zero, it makes a better product for all of you. And that's what we're going to do today. So why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Sure.
And go from there.
Thank you. I am Stefan Karametlian. I'm a director with Microsoft Digital. As Caruana mentioned, Microsoft Digital is Microsoft's very own internal IT organization. And for the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of leading customer zero efforts for M365 Copilot for the entirety of the company. For those of you who haven't heard the term before, Customer Zero is Microsoft's newer way of saying dog fooding. Microsoft prides itself in testing all of our technology with our global workforce before our companies or before our products are made generally available. And M365 Copilot was no exception there. Microsoft, for context, has 330,000 employees and vendors worldwide. And I was responsible for the deployment, change management, and adoption efforts for all of those people for the last 2 years. There's so much more that I could talk about right now, and I think this is why you booked an hour.
And he's still standing. Can we just all note that? Like, he's still standing. Because the degree, I'm sure you all have felt the degree of change and intensity that is going on in the space right now, and it is amplified inside of Microsoft, because Microsoft also helps us test and dog food all of the new features. And so there's a lot going on inside before it ever comes out to customers. So the team's really done an amazing job. And yeah, this gives folks an idea of the global landscape that's there.
Yeah, this slide, we're not going to drain this slide at all, but it essentially shows you the complexity of our ecosystem, the complexity of our tenant, the diversity within our company as well. Just prior to this session, I was actually talking to a group of individuals about our neurodivergent strategy and how we were able to bring about, to help those communities with the help of Copilot. And one of the most outstanding things about this 2-year journey that we've been on is really leveraging the power of that diversity that we have within the company in order to make a better product that's more inclusive, not only for our employees, but also for our customers. So, things on the slide here, we're based out of 108 different countries. We operate out of more than 600 physical buildings, and we were sure to reach out to every individual across all of those buildings, or even if they were working remotely, because one of our mantras was We didn't want to leave any Microsoft employee behind on this journey with Copilot. And Microsoft employees have been amazing at embracing that opportunity and helping us build a better product.
They have, and I think, obviously you've had some experience in doing things like this because of all the different types of new technology that we have rolled out. We managed, obviously, going to cloud. We managed the Skype for Business to Teams. That was one of my projects before I moved into product engineering. And, the Microsoft employee base, you might be under the assumption that everybody is rah, give me something new. I'm here to disabuse you of that idea. There's plenty of people inside our organization that would simply prefer we leave them alone and let them get their jobs done. Because even though they work in a huge multinational technology company, if you're in finance or HR or legal or one of the other functional units, even if you're in sales, your job is not really about using the technology, it's about getting that core function done. And so we have the same difficulties inside Microsoft that all of you might have when you're rolling out new technology. We still have to land the what's in it for them. Even though obviously with an initiative like Copilot, why people know that this is a key strategic initiative for our company, we still have to go make the case, and this is the team that has to do it. And so making sure that people really understand why we're changing their business practices is essential, right? And it happens at different times. Yeah. And you're what I call kind of a black belt adoption specialist, right? There is a course, I'll talk about it in my part in a minute, for user adoption specialists in this area. And it is the introductory course. I wrote it, it's published out on Microsoft Learn. But when you're doing it at this level, you're having multiple adoption campaigns going at the same time at different phases for different departments. And that is a very complicated, which leads me to my question for you, which is, how big is your team?
So the Microsoft Digital is, upwards of 1,000 people worldwide, right? My own team of change management practitioners who have been driving the internal adoption of Copilot, we're looking at less than 20 people who were able to do this internationally. And one of the things that we wanted to do early on was make sure that we tailor and localize our experiences as much as possible in however many languages that we could, bespoke to however many roles that we could, in order to have that individualized change management experience. And you touched upon something really important here. Copilot is a significant change, and different employees are going to be on different parts of that change curve, and so you need to accommodate for all of that throughout the entirety of your journey with Copilot. What we've seen, though, and maybe this is a Microsoft phenomenon, given so many people were excited about the product even before it was released, was you had those people, those first few out of the gate, running towards the technology. And when we first started to measure our success around Copilot, when we were looking at adoption figures, we were really focused on MAU, or monthly active usage, where we were hoping that the majority of our employees would use Copilot at least once a month. That was at the inception of the product and the project. Now, 2 years later, we are hyper-focused on having employees build daily habits around Copilot, and therefore, the metric that we're heavily looking at is daily active usage, or DAU. Mm-hmm. I have to say, I use the word DAU around my house so much that my 1-year-old son, I was convinced his first word was going to be DAO, just because that's all I ever talked about.
That's amazing. Well, one of the things, too, is I want to rewind a little bit for folks out there and understand how many of you are running pilots right now with Copilot licenses? Okay. Fantastic.
Pilots of Copilot.
Pilots of Copilot, right. How many of you are actually in a production implementation of Copilot? Okay, here's the thing. Copilot adoption processes never stop. This is not going to be something that you are going to deploy and people will then kind of self-teach and you can kind of leave it on its own. That's not the way AI is right now. But also it's important to note, and we haven't forgotten this at Microsoft, a great Copilot experience is based on healthy Microsoft 365 usage. So people using Teams well, people using SharePoint and OneDrive well, people understanding how to use some of the other apps like Lists or Loop or what have you. So while you're thinking about Copilot, and we appreciate that, and it is what we should be doing, as folks who are doing adoption, my part of the job is with actual customers around the world. And my team writes all of the user readiness and technical readiness for Copilot and publishes it and gets feedback on it consequently. And so the most successful customers that I see are those who have a dedicated team to do this user enablement work, and who have ongoing campaigns, not only about Copilot, but also about the fundamentals. Like, I know there's some gaps in the way that our products work occasionally, like easily saving a file in the right SharePoint site from Office, from Word or PowerPoint or what have you. That can be really challenging for some people. That's why everything in terms of their corporate information can often end up in the OneDrive experience, which is not bad, but not necessarily where you really want it. It's things like that that will ultimately impact the success of your Copilot work. So we reserve a portion of the capacity on my team to refresh all of those materials. So over the summer months, you'll see new adoption guides and materials coming out on adoption.microsoft.com for Teams, for SharePoint, and for OneDrive, as well as Loop. And that will also help you to intersperse these topics as you're doing user engagement campaigns and other things. So don't think that healthy Copilot usage is just about Copilot. It's about the entire Microsoft 365 experience. And of course, we'll talk about agents in a little bit of a separate topic, but we're talking about that core Copilot experience right now.
That foundational knowledge of M365 is critical, but I will also add that even in our own research that we've done internally within the company, Copilot has a way of surfacing and up-leveling an employee's knowledge of M365 as well, right?
That's right.
There are
Yes,
so
it
many
does.
features built into our products that people often don't use because I have a way of using Outlook, and that's how I'm going to use Outlook, and so on. But then once someone starts to leverage Copilot, it opens new doors of new features that they didn't really leverage, and they didn't really know that they needed until Copilot presented it to them. So we've noticed this internally as well.
That is absolutely true. And what I'm bringing up on the screen now is our primary Copilot hub for enablement, whether it is strategic planning, leadership, technical readiness, or user enablement. You will find all of the information we have published from all of our different sites curated into one here on adoption.microsoft.com. I also have to call out, because I see in the audience, the woman on my team who is the chief editor and mother of adoption.microsoft.com, Jessie Wong. Jessie, you want to wave to everyone? Yeah, Jessie does a fantastic job absolutely running this so well because we support all of the new emerging services and new capabilities that came out. So she is the one who is behind this. And the thing that I want to call out here in particular also that will be important as you go forward, this is a new design for this site, and you notice we have content for Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, which is the version of Copilot that's included with your subscription. Right? This is the non-licensed version, and I'm going to say that until I die because no one, you can't remember it because we've done some renaming. I heard we renamed the product a time or two. And so we have materials for that. For the licensed experience, Microsoft 365 Copilot, this is where you'll find all of the information, and you'll notice we have a specific implementation methodology. This methodology, getting ready, onboarding and engaging, delivering impact, and extending and optimize, we have across all of our products in Microsoft 365. And this is how we organize the materials that you need. You're also able to change the role. Are you looking for leadership materials, user enablement materials, like all of our adoption campaign materials and the overall workbook that shows you how to do this work, or are you focused on the technical readiness? I'm showing this to you right now because I want to make one other point. The other thing that we see in customers around the world is those that are successful have a unified team between a leader who is the executive sponsor of the project, the user enablement team who's going to focus on the user experience and keep excitement high and monitor results, as Stefan was talking about, and more, and the IT and technical readiness people that are doing the data and security and policy work that needs to be done in your M365 tenant. So you have to talk to each other, right? Don't underestimate the power of food in those meetings if you happen to be co-located. Bring a pizza, bring some donuts, maybe something healthy, I suppose, at this point in our lives, but really be talking to one another. How many in this room consider themselves user enablement or adoption specialists? Okay, and then how many of you sit in IT or also have the responsibility for the technical administration of Copilot? Wow. Right, okay, that's great. So this often happens a lot as well, where it all comes to one person. And I will tell you that I came from IT, and so consequently, I had that technical background, but doing great adoption is also a human-centric project that requires marketing and communication skills that aren't endemic to IT. So make friends with people who like to do that stuff. Make yourself a virtual team, really bring people in. And now you have done that. How is your relationship with the folks between those, because it is more segmented in Microsoft?
So we meet weekly, quite honestly, and we have for the past 2 years since the inception of the product. We quickly realized that we would not be successful if we don't collaborate very early on and in a sustained way. There are just so many. I'm leading change management, adoption, and user enablement. I cannot do my job without understanding the technical realities that the people managing our tenant and the licenses for Copilot without their knowledge. So we confer with them. They're a part of our testing. We conduct focus groups with them along with the users as well. I'm kind of the intermediary, if you will, between the technical folks and the non-technical folks at Microsoft to kind of translate, the information that's flowing both ways, because it needs to be that kind of dialogue.
It does. You're absolutely right. And one of the things I also want to call out here, whether you're an IT or a user enablement specialist or a combination of both, please go back into the leadership area and look at that implementation summary guide, because I feel like you can download this material, obviously, and it is available in multiple languages as well. But this gives you the ability to really have a conversation with your leaders so that they begin to understand the value that AI can bring to the business and the workforce transformation. Because here's the thing. People talk about AI with a lot about productivity and efficiency, and it does bring that. But the better conversation to be having is how it can grow the business, right? How it can grow the business and deepen the skills of the workforce. That is really what AI is for. Get more products to market, reduce time in support queues, make sure that the business is healthy and expanding to new markets. Really be thinking about that. You want leadership thinking about that while you are thinking about how is IT and user enablement folks going to be a strategic asset to those executive leaders. And that's a big shift that those of us who have been in IT for a while, we kind of started making that shift as people were seeing our roles, and then the pandemic came. And I do feel like that kind of stopped our modernization of IT and some of that conversation a little bit. And so now we need to go back to that. Everything that you do is a strategic asset to the business. And I know you and Natalie and the team talk about that all the time.
Every day. We need to understand the company. We need to understand our users. We need to understand their processes in order to be able to support them through this type of change.
Right.
And Copilot really pushed us to get creative in order to be able to accommodate this large change in a company as large as Microsoft. And one of the things that we did in Microsoft Digital was we actually created a champions community of M365 Copilot champs. It started off very grassroots with a couple dozen people who were very passionate and very enthusiastic about the technology, and that community has now grown to over 7,000 employees within the company. I'm not saying that this because 7,000 is an impressive number or anything.
Even though it is,
it's,
actually.
it's more what we've been able to accomplish with the breadth of roles and diversity within that community.
Right.
Those champions have learned Copilot very deeply, done the research to kind of make Copilot real to their role, and then have become evangelists of their findings with their peers, which then enables those learnings to go viral. So sure, while there are some Copilot features that are applicable to anyone, right? We all know about summarize, the last meeting I was in, prioritize my inbox, and so on, that anyone can use. The real value and impact of Copilot comes from those personal moments based off of my workflows, my job, and so on. And this is where champions have enabled us to make a tremendous impact across the company.
So my team runs the global Microsoft 365 Champions program, and we have monthly meetings that are free, recorded. You can join us and have conversation, or you can listen on demand, whatever you might like to do. They are fun. We try to have a good time, and we go back and forth between AI and non-Copilot topics, but we support that. And so the team that's inside, the Champions program that's inside Microsoft, is a beautiful example of implementing a champions program. In most cases, being a champion is not someone's full-time job. They do it because they really like to help people. That is different from early adopters who actually like to play with new technology. So if you don't have a robust champions program, now's the time to think about it, because you really need to have these people that are embedded in the different departments. I have one other thing to show about that, but I wanted to show this particular slide because the leadership, human change, and technical readiness work that's necessary, each thing has its essential thing that needs to be done. Right? In leadership, making sure that you have that AI counselor, those people who are thinking about how AI is going to impact the business. And I've written articles, the team and I have written articles on how to implement an AI council in small, medium, and large businesses. And there's a page that we have, Leadership in the Era of AI, that's really trying to help managers transition there. And then, of course, human change, we're talking about that, best practices in adoption, and then the technical readiness. This is a cheat sheet, basically. This implementation guide is a cheat sheet for what you should be doing. So even if you're kind of down the path in doing this implementation, I highly suggest you go back and look at our materials that we've developed and redeveloped. We update this, I want to say once a month, I feel like, Jesse would tell me, but certainly once a quarter. We're taking feedback from all of you, from all the implementations we see around the world. We're updating all of our documentation and making sure that people have the newest thing. So that was the implementation guide under leadership. And then, of course, the other user enablement guide, this is the big deck that gives you all of the details and best practices about how to do this rollout. I recommend that you take a look for your own education, and then you will pick and choose the things that you want to do in your own organization. But we do have a quick start guide in here that tells you the 5 essential things: having a blended team, having a champions program, looking at reporting, making sure you're engaging with users, and addressing feedback, right? These are the essential things you have to do from a user enablement perspective, and there's suggestions and recommendations and tools throughout this. The other thing I want to show you really quick, however, is the scenario guide that we have built. As you're having conversations with business leaders in your organization, sometimes they're like, I know I hear the word Copilot and I hear the word AI, and can somebody just give me a hype-free description of why this matters? Because I don't need to be sold, I just need to understand, right? These are leaders, right? They don't really need to be sold anymore. That's what the scenario library is all about. We've built this scenario library in such a way that you can find scenarios by functional area in your organization. And they're simple things and complex things. This is the current version. We will be adding a different agent-based scenarios and video examples to it, again, over the course of the summer. This is another thing that Jesse on the team spearheads. But what we like about this is, so I'm coming here into communications. Say I work in the communications department in your organization. I can see them all, right? But I can also just click through and understand the different types of scenarios that I can improve and change by using Copilot, right? Draft different variations. I can refine the drafts of this particular scenario. I'm using Copilot in this scenario to draft an internal communications post. But what if I want to do something different? Right? And we've got some video here already. Look at you, Jesse. I didn't even know you put that video in there already. That is so cool. Right? Transforming communications. I can do analyst relations with Copilot, executive communications, or public affairs. And these give you specific actionable scenarios that people can change using our tools. And by the way, it's not just Copilot, it's the rest of Microsoft 365 as well. Right? And so the more that we have, the more that we'll publish. I'm going to hop into this one, this communication scenario, but it gives you the steps there, right? So you can, I really envisioned this. I've wanted to build the scenario library for years for M365. I finally was able to do it for Copilot because I wanted to be able to sit down with a leader. Back when I was in the job that you have now, I want to be able to sit down with the head of HR at Microsoft and say, here's the things that M365 can do for you. Let's have a discussion about what's on this page. What do you need? Because even if nothing on this site resonates with them, it's a conversation starter. Right? Sometimes you just need that leader to open up to you about what problems they really have in their organization, right? You want to build, from a career perspective, everyone in this room should be building relationships with business leaders inside the organization so that your value as a technologist and as somebody who can be a business solution architect and adoption specialist is clearly understood. Use the site for that. Right? This is a career development tool as much as it is anything else, in the world. And IT, you all have done a great job of helping us refine these scenarios.
And we're still investing in it on a daily basis, right?
Yes.
This is where Copilot becomes real for our employees and our customers.
Yes.
Right? Beyond those kind of generic prompts and features that you've all heard in every single marketing campaign for Copilot, this is where once employees embrace kind of the scenario-based value that they can derive from Copilot, this is what acts as a multiplier to usage and productivity, quite honestly.
And we always say, so I've switched over the tab to industry. So let me just go back and show how I did that up at the top here. So the scenario library defaults to come in by function, the departmental functions that I mentioned, but we also now have an industry pivot. Because if I work in healthcare or financial services, my reality is quite different from a standard commercial organization. The same is true in public sector, which we call government here. So I'm just going to click on healthcare really quickly and then be able to look at all of the healthcare content that we have available and the different types of processes, patient and member service, right? Operations efficiency. These are things that you can have this conversation with, right? And understand. One other thing, so originally I came from public sector and the legal industry. That's where I started my technology career. My industry experience was actually very important as I added to it my technology acumen. So if you work in a specific industry and you know that industry really well, insurance or legal or anything, marry that information together with what we provide from a technology and Microsoft perspective. That is very specialized and very important. There are not enough people in the world who know how to do that, right? It is an incredibly valuable skill. And so invest in yourself to really become that kind of industry expert, if you will, inside your own organization so that you can, weave the benefits of this change.
And if it's complex, use your champs. Rely on your champs to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, the champs will come and help you with that because some of us need to be more generalists because we have the accountability for the broad program, like myself now. I'm not deep in legal anymore, but I know a lot about, several things.
Someone asked me the other day if we were going to be doing process mining for Microsoft in order to uncover new scenarios in which Copilot could have an impact. And I said, absolutely. But then I started to imagine the process map that would exist for Microsoft.
Ooh.
And
We've done that work in the past. Yeah, I think I still have this multi-page. But the process mining, here's another thing. That's a beautiful segue to another piece of this, which is there's great technology. They're actually in the data and Power Platform worlds. They announced some new capabilities around doing process mining and mapping and data analysis just recently, in the last few months. But your first line of defense there is the humans in your organization, right? If you want to know something about processes in your organization as you prepare for or go to deepen your Copilot implementation, talk to the actual workforce, because they will tell you the things that are broken. And oftentimes we go directly to the technology that we've got to deploy a new tool to map the process, when really you just need to talk to Sally in accounting, because Sally will tell you what is broken, because she's worked there for a long time and she is well aware, and maybe no one ever asked her before, right? And so it's important to think of humans as the resource here, providing expertise, and that is what will assist AI in being successful.
Our feedback loop was launched on day one of M365 Copilot and exists to this day. I honestly don't foresee us ever retiring it, just given the volume of change, the volume of creativity that's coming from our user base, and the amount of feedback that we're able to collect and actually action upon.
Absolutely.
So have a feedback loop within your company as it relates to AI and Copilot, because that will really help you inform your next steps, your investments, how to better engage with users, and how to get users to derive more value out of your product.
Absolutely. And then the other piece of this is, you hear folks talk about, and I want your insight on this. We watch the time. I don't have my glasses on for the time.
We've got time. We've
Okay,
got
great.
20 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk about the pace of this change. So you hear people talk about, well, we've been through big changes before. We moved to cloud. We dealt with the pandemic. We have hybrid meetings now. We did these big things. But all of those were technology changes versus this being a human change. This is absolutely directly impacting the way that individual people do their work. I'll use myself as an example. When I worked in IT, I started my day in Outlook. And then I moved to Microsoft Teams engineering, and so I started my day in Microsoft Teams, like religiously. There was a period of time when I worked in Teams engineering that I didn't pay much attention to email at all, because all the people I worked with used Teams. And I had to go look at it once in a while for those executive comms and what have you, but it really wasn't part of my day. Then I moved divisions back to a group that does use email quite a bit, and now I have to have both. And then I started to feel a lot of stress at the information fracturing that was going on around me. Now, my day actually starts in the web version of Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? Because that's where I can start my day with my own intention of what I need to get done, as opposed to what app I have to start. So now I can go in and say, hey, summarize my email across all channels for the last 3 days with open action items, put it in the table for me. And that's how I start my day now. So every person is going to have a change. Whereas when we moved to cloud, some people didn't need to care. They didn't need to care that the cloud was different on the back end. So this is why the adoption journey is so important. What do you think are some of the biggest insights that you've gotten from the champions about that actual daily change?
So when we were first thinking about monitoring daily usage of Copilot, I told my boss, I'm going to need to talk to like a behavioral scientist or something like that to see how do we kind of embed this technology to be at the forefront of our employees' minds, right? And but what we quickly realized is, as people and champions in particular were doing the scenario-based work, doing the process mapping informally for their organizations, learning the technology that wasn't and still isn't a fully baked experience.
Right.
It's evolving on an hourly basis. Once we had those insights, there was almost a viral element that kicked in, which we cannot stop. We have exceeded all of our targets in terms of the usage, the value that we wanted to see within the company as it relates to Copilot. And did change management contribute towards that? Absolutely. Was reinforcing change management necessary because of the new investments and technologies? We haven't even talked about agents yet.
You can see I'm pulling it up because we're
Okay.
going to talk about that next, yes.
All of this requires a level of reinforcement and, quite honestly, celebration with your companies in order to inspire employees to learn and invest and take the time to be successful as it relates to this technology. But celebration is just as equally important.
Absolutely.
Right? What are those best practices? Where have we been able to move the needle? What are the measurable pieces of impact that one or a team or an organization was able to drive thanks to Copilot? It's really inspiring, quite honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the hardest day. Because, sometimes Microsoft people come in here and we talk about how wonderful everything is. But the truth is, every day is not wonderful, right? And this is a challenging work. Being an adoption specialist or an IT professional was already challenging with the plethora of new services, more complex data estates, hybrid work environments and hybrid facilities that have to be managed. So, we're not under any illusion that the job is simple. What we know is that there's tremendous opportunity, and we want you all to take advantage of that. But there's also skills that you need to build, like some of what we call the power skills: negotiation, conflict resolution, taking feedback without being defensive. His name is Rishi Nikolai, by the way, the behavioral scientist that works at Microsoft that specializes in this. And I know you know Rishi, right?
No, I actually want to
Okay.
get
He's
to know.
spectacular, right?
Okay.
He wrote the modern collaboration architecture. He and I partner on that.
Got it.
He's wonderful. But, the Work Trends Index reporting that comes out has some very specific messages about how we should be thinking about Copilot implementations, building the frontier firm, really moving your company forward, and how agents will be a part of the digital workforce of every organization. In that messaging is an inherent trust that we don't take for granted at Microsoft, but there's also these really difficult days where you have people coming into your office or onto a Teams meeting like, I don't want to talk about this. Why are you making me do this? Some people can be very aggressive about their desire to be left alone. Did I say that nicely? I was trying. I've actually had it said to me in not so nice ways. But, not every day is fun. So tell us about how you manage some of those stressful moments in driving an adoption program at the scale that you are, but even on the kind of human level.
I really want to write a book about this one day. I've come across so much good, bad, ugly on this journey of Copilot. It's incredible. Look, I'm in IT. Technical issues pop up all the time, some of which are more serious than others. Especially in the early days of Copilot, it would not oftentimes, but it would do or say things that it wasn't supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So we had to slap it on the wrists and, show it the right way. And over time it learned, and it's been good since. From a change management perspective, one of my largest learnings was to engage with works councils as soon as possible. Works councils, for those of you who don't know, are applicable to multinational organizations whereby in some countries there are elective representatives within the company who represent the best interest of their employees. And they're an independent body within the company, and they're looking out for the well-being of their employees, so they can block certain policies, certain technologies that might infringe upon the rights of the employees within that specific country. And Microsoft is no exception. We have works councils in, I believe, 13 or 14 different countries around the world. And we knew that we needed to get the works council's buy-in in order to deploy Copilot in those markets. Now, a lot of works council employees are not technical either, right? They have a day job within Microsoft. They could be in finance, they could be in HR, they could be in sales, they could be developers. It doesn't matter. They're elected officials by their peers. But what we decided to do very early on is to give them fundamental education of not only Copilot, but also AI in general as a phenomenon. Starting from, square one, what is a large language model? And then kind of working our way towards Copilot and its capabilities. And that early engagement not only built knowledge within that Works Council community, but also trust. And we even capitalized on that great engagement that we had with our Works Councils, where their feedback, based off of their local regulations, ended up impacting the design of the product that you see today, which therefore made Copilot as a product more compliant internationally for our customers to be able to use as well. So if you're in a multinational corporation, or if you do have employees who are based in countries who oftentimes have Works Councils, France, Germany, Netherlands are the three that always come to mind. Build relationships with your Works Councils sooner rather than later, so that they can build their own knowledge and their trust in AI in order to help make you successful. And now some of them are also part of our champs communities.
Oh, that's great.
Now too, so.
The other thing to think about is if you're not a multinational and that particular scenario doesn't apply, take the strategy of it and apply it to your organization. Early engagement with people who aren't on the AI bandwagon or the Copilot bandwagon yet is really important. But a word of caution: change your language depending upon who you were talking to. I do not go into the deep and gnarly technical details of RAG and LLMs and different model names and numbers and vendors when I'm talking to a business leader that is actually interested in how this is going to help them, right? If you can, I really encourage people, especially in IT, to answer the question with a short answer and then ask, do you want more details? Do you want to learn more about that? Sometimes in IT, we have a tendency to give this super long technical answer, and they just wanted to know if they had access to the license or something, right? I'm just using an example, but we don't actually answer the question because we are there giving all of our depth. We think in depth, right? My husband sometimes jokes, I think in paragraphs, and he just needs a yes or a no, right? He doesn't need to know everything in the marinade. Is it chicken or beef? That's all he wants to know, because that's what he has to do on the grill, right? Sometimes people just need to know how hot to set the grill, okay? That's all they need. They don't need to know every other special sauce thing, literally, that I am doing to make that dinner. So please remember that as you're doing that early engagement. Who are you talking to? What matters to them? And tailor your answer accordingly. Because I have watched many meetings in customers go off the rails where a technical architect comes in and they ask a question, some leader asks a question maybe about security, and that person just goes on for like 8 minutes about how scary the threat vectors are. And if you think you're getting new technology after that conversation, I have to tell you, you're not. I have mastered the art of gracefully interrupting people, right? Because you can watch the room fall apart. You read the room is really important. And when you start to see it going down, you want to be like, there's so much information about this. Do you want all this? Because we can give you a briefing. I can send you a website that you can have if you happen to want to go deep. But I think what you were asking was foo, right? I do that quite a bit just to keep conversations on track. Because otherwise, wow, it can really get problematic. And we saw this when we did governance committees. Right? I wrote a white paper on how to build a governance committee probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It's how long I've been teaching governance of these environments. Nobody cared, by the way, just so you know. I've been talking about governance forever. Nobody cared. Now, they care. It's awesome. But the point there is that, you could have these conversations between IT security, business, and user enablement, and those meetings could be really, really painful if there wasn't somebody there who could read the room and keep the conversation going and keep it focused. Also, sometimes these people have history with each other, right? And there could be a personal dynamic going on at the same time. So you can't just go in and talk about the technology. You have to understand that human level. And that's part of the psychology that you need to be great at kind of technical leadership now. And we do this a lot inside Microsoft also. And so, yeah, it's an interesting time. I do want to switch the topic a little bit to agents, because all of you are probably working on the core Copilot experience right now as it expresses itself in Office, in Teams, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. But the conversations that we're going to be having over the next 12 months is going to be very, very, very much about agents. Did anybody in here ever build InfoPath workflows? Am I the only person? Oh my goodness, I am old. Okay, there's a few of you. But there are solutions that were built in Microsoft 365 in the original SharePoint days. And we talked about it to death back then. Agents are about to become that. Why? Because they are going to be the thing that individual users can build as well as IT. And they can be very, very simple, what we call declarative agents that are built right in this interface right here. They can be low code, almost no code agents like you do in Copilot Studio, or they can be custom agents that invoke things like Azure OpenAI services and go to custom data areas. This arc of the agent building experience, you're going to hear us talk about a lot, especially this month. We'll talk about it here, and we're going to talk about it more at Microsoft Build on May 19th. And when you hear people talk about the frontier firm and talking about these digital team members, that's what this is really about. And I'm looking at the web experience for Microsoft 365 right now, and it is definitely different than it has been in the past. Over here, of course, is the core Copilot chat, but we have other experiences. You can see in mine that I've actually pinned Outlook here and Teams so that I can get to them. My version right now happens to have a waffle because I'm using the consumer version, or the external version of this now, because obviously that is where you can find all of the apps that you know and love. But if you look over here on the right-hand side, this is where you're seeing some of these pre-built agents. Now, this is a pretty new experience that I'm showing you today. But once you have used it for a while, you will have additional agents that will be named by your organization over here. So for instance, when I look at this in my internal version inside Microsoft, there's one that is summarize your day or prepare for your day. There's one, know your client, that connects to our CRM system that everybody at Microsoft has access to, right? Because everybody needs to prepare to talk to a customer. And these agents will also be in the store here. We're all familiar with the App Store, but now the App Store will include these agents. And some of them are built by Microsoft. You'll be able to publish to them. So from an IT perspective, you'll govern this like you governed Teams apps, right? You have policies, you can turn them on and off. There's some that come from Microsoft. If they meet your needs, you can turn them on. If not, you can do something different. But and we're necessarily releasing things like Prompt Coach, Writing Coach, Idea Coach. These coaches that we are publishing, there's going to be more of those, and you can pre-pin them in your environment. And so everybody has a prompt coach at their disposal. That is amazing in helping people to feel that they can self-fulfill their own needs with agents. I am super excited about the project management agent, because I'm great at writing project management plans, and midway through a production schedule, somebody stops updating them. And I am not great at always having to write the status reports. I want my agent to help me out with that, right? And I can learn those things. So how are you thinking about agents, and how are the champions dealing with agents inside Microsoft? I know you're a little further down the road because you've got the preliminary, the preview version.
Agents is our third wave of change as it relates to Copilot within Microsoft. Wave one was out-of-the-box M365 app functionality, right? Summarize email, recap meetings, and so on. Phase two was around making it real with scenario-based insights. Wave three is all about agents. Within agents, I actually think of it from two aspects. One prong of it is, what are the agents that Microsoft is going to provide its employees in order to make its employees successful, right? This could be defined at the company level, the divisional level, or even the team level, where developers go into Copilot Studio and develop more robust agents to the benefit of that organization or whatnot. The other prong, which almost surprised me, is the low-code, no-code ability to create an agent at an individual level where Microsoft employees are rushing to that experience in droves to learn how to create an agent, and we have thousands of agents already published and helping them in their daily workflows, in their daily realities, however they've decided to customize that agent.
And I want to just pause there for 1 second. I've been clicking along as you've been talking. There's some fantastic sessions on Copilot Studio and agent building here at the show. There's more materials that you're going to be able to find on this, of course, on adoption.microsoft.com and throughout our community training experiences. But most of the time when I talk about this with customers out in the field, their first fear is around like the plethora of agents, right? And like, oh my goodness, we're going to have agent sprawl like we had SharePoint site sprawl, right? That's a common reaction. There is some governance to do around this, but what you have to find the balance between letting people be creative and creating agents for themselves, right, that they have only with the data that they have access to, so you can get fresh, innovative ideas, and agents that you're going to build from an organizational perspective that have access to organizational data, like the CRM system I was mentioning, that you want everyone to have access to. The second question everyone always talks about is cost. And we owe you, Microsoft owes you, some additional clarity on what the pay-as-you-go impact will be when you are building agents in your environment. And my team and I are intensely working on that for our flagship developer event, Microsoft Build. We should have a quick reference sheet because it depends on whether or not you are a licensed user, Microsoft 365 Copilot, or a included user, right, a free version. And so there's some differences there. So we know that we owe you, this has been changing a lot, we know that we owe you some clarity and guidance on that. We're definitely working on that. So by the time we get to June, by the time you leave this conference and see some of the sessions from Microsoft Build and start to think about what your plan is going to look like for the next couple of quarters, try not to plan too much longer than that right now, okay? You will have that guidance from us because you definitely want to unblock your employees in the agent scenarios. But I just wanted to address those two things that I know that come up all the time, and People are like, tell us what it's going to cost. Because the issue is unlicensed users can access these agents over here to a certain throttled level that is included with your Microsoft 365 subscription. Whether you're Business Premium, E1, E3, E5, there's a certain level of this agent activity that is included with your subscription. What we need to be a little more clear about is where is the threshold of when pay-as-you-go begins to kick in. And frankly, I want to give you a workbook so you can put in some numbers and spit out an estimate, because that's really what your leaders want. They want to build things, but they want to know what it's going to cost on that Azure bill if you're doing a pay-as-you-go. So we're definitely working on that. But as you see, I went to that app store and I installed the prompt coach. Now it's available in my navigation. I can click on, create agent from here and load that agent builder that's here in Microsoft 365. I could navigate to Copilot Studio if I wanted to use a broader set of connectors and templates. A lot of templates for agent building now, but definitely that third wave of change. So when you leave this conference, we would hope that you would go and be inspired to both join our Microsoft 365 Champions program so you get access to all the good stuff and stay close to us because our teams, because we're doing so much work that can help you. But also, think about what you want your plan to be, literally between now and December. How are you going to build more champions, build your relationships with business users, make sure you're getting feedback, and think about what your budget for all of this is going to look like in terms of adding additional licenses, that sort of thing. Because hopefully you're focused on empowering core groups of people in departments that work together. We used to do pilots where we kind of put the licenses out across a bunch of different people. That does not work in Copilot. You need to put those early licenses out to people who actually work together. That's how you're going to get the benefit. right? That's another common thing that we've seen as people have deployed around the world. All right. What else do you want to share with folks? I'm going to put up your Inside Track
I was about to
site.
say, can I get a plug?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Boom, here we go, sir.
So Microsoft Digital is, constantly living and breathing what you all as IT professionals live and breathe as well. And one of the things that we're super passionate about is sharing our learnings, sharing our findings with you so that you can emulate, anything that might be of interest to you in our methodologies, in our learnings, or to come to us with any questions or feedback as well. So I really appreciate this opportunity today to come and talk to all of you, but I'd also like to direct you to the Inside Track, which is off of Microsoft.com, that publishes, how Microsoft Digital did it, right? Did IT for any number of technologies. You can only imagine the number of AI-related articles that we've published recently, including M365 Copilot. We have nothing to hide, and if you read the articles and you walk away with any questions, I know we've only even scratched the surface today in terms of what we've done in order to deploy Copilot at Microsoft. Feel free to reach out to me directly on Whova, on LinkedIn, through Inside Track. I would be more than happy to meet with you, with your leadership, with your team, to help make it more real from Microsoft IT's kind of unbiased perspectives. Again, sure, we're Microsoft, but just like any other IT professionals, we've seen it all. We've had to put duct tape around some things here and there. We aren't proud of it, but then we clean it up, hopefully before the experience comes your way. And yeah, we just love learning from you guys as well. So.
Yeah, and what's also wonderful is that we, in our customer hub, we're going to be doing more webinars with the IT team, so that that's a repeatable asset that you can get at any time. And join us over in our Microsoft 365 community. You can always, there's lots of customers there and other people who are on this path. Have fun with this. Stay curious. This is a moment for you in your career. You'll hear me talk about that throughout the show, and have some fun while you're here. We really appreciate you giving us this time today, and hope this was valuable. And that's what we've got for you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.